Welcome to another episode of Extreme Expat Stories of Thailand. Hey there, my name is Kai Nakamura, and I've been following your Extreme Expat Stories of Thailand channel now for a few months. I never thought I'd be writing you one of these emails, but after what happened to me last month, I have to share this story. I'm still shaking as I type this, and I honestly believe sharing this could save someone's life. You always say that Thailand can be paradise or hell depending on your choices. Well, I came within inches of choosing hell, and I didn't even know it. It started 3 months ago when I moved to Bangkok from Kyoto to teach English. I was 24, fresh out of university, and completely naive about the darkest side of expat life in Thailand. I'd watched all your videos about scams and dangers, but nothing, and I mean nothing, prepared me for this. I was living in a small apartment in Thonglor, trying to stretch my savings while waiting for my work permit to come through. Money was getting tight, and I was starting to panic about rent. That's when I met Tyler at a co-working space in Ekamai. Tyler was everything you'd expect from a successful American expat. Mid-60s, always wore expensive polo shirts, drove a new BMW, and had this confident way of speaking that made you think he had life figured out. He claimed he'd been living in Thailand for 15 years, running some kind of import-export business. The guy seemed to know everyone: restaurant owners, local officials, other expats. He was like the unofficial mayor of the expat community in that area. We started hanging out regularly. Tyler would always pick up the tab at nice restaurants, take me to exclusive rooftop bars, and introduce me to what he called the real Thailand. He seemed genuinely interested in helping young expats like me get established. Looking back now, I realize he was grooming me, but at the time, I just thought I'd found a mentor. About 6 weeks into our friendship, Tyler started talking about how he was always traveling for business. He'd show me photos from trips to Singapore, Malaysia, Vietnam, and France. He made it seem glamorous. First-class flights, 5-star hotels, fancy business dinners. Then came the conversation that almost ruined my life. We were at a bar in Asok, and Tyler seemed a bit agitated. He kept checking his phone and looking around nervously. Finally, he leaned in and said, "Kai, I need a favor. A big one. And I'm willing to pay you 200,000 baht for maybe 4 hours of work." My ears perked up immediately. That was more than 3 months' rent for me. I tried to play it cool, but Tyler could see the desperation in my eyes. "Here's the situation," he said. "I have a business trip to France next week, Phuket to Paris. But I've got some personal issues with my ex-wife back in the States, and she's been causing problems with my business accounts. If she finds out about this trip, she could freeze everything through her lawyers." He paused to order another drink, letting the suspense build. "I need someone I trust to check in my luggage for me. You'd fly down to Phuket, meet me at the airport, check in 2 suitcases under your name, and then leave. I'll handle everything else. The bags are just business samples. Nothing illegal, nothing dangerous. Just some products I'm importing that I need to get to my partners in France." Even as desperate as I was, something felt off. I asked him why he couldn't just ship the items or have someone else do it. The shipping would take weeks, And this is time sensitive, he explained. My other contacts are all busy with their own stuff. Plus, I trust you. You're not some sketchy backpacker looking to make quick money. You're educated. You speak English perfectly. You look professional. Airport security won't give you a second glance. He slid an envelope across the table. There's 50,000 baht as a down payment. The rest when the job's done. I stared at that envelope for what felt like hours. In my mind, I was calculating how many months of financial stress this would eliminate. I thought about your videos where you always talk about being careful. But 200,000 baht for one day's work seemed too good to pass up. I took the money. Tyler was ecstatic. He gave me detailed instructions. Fly to Phuket on Wednesday morning. Meet him at the airport at 2 p.m. Check in the bags. And fly back to Bangkok that evening. Simple. Clean. Easy money. The next few days, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. I kept telling myself it was just nerves about handling someone else's luggage. I even did some research online about customs regulations and what happens if you're caught carrying someone else's bags. Everything I read made me more nervous. But I'd already spent part of the advance money on rent. Tuesday night, Tyler called me with some last-minute changes. Small hiccup, he said. I need you to actually travel with the bags to France. Same money. But instead of just checking them in, you'll be on the flight. Think of it as a free vacation to Paris. My stomach dropped. This was completely different from what we'd discussed. I told him I didn't have a visa for France, and I'd need time to prepare for international travel. Already handled, he said smoothly. Japanese passport holders get visa-free entry to France for up to 90 days. I've already changed your ticket. You land in Paris. Collect the bags, meet my business partner at the airport, and then you're free to explore the city or fly straight back to Bangkok. Either way, you get the full 200,000 baht. Every instinct in my body was screaming that this was wrong, but I was in it too deep. I'd already taken his money, and backing out now seemed more dangerous than going through with it. Wednesday morning, I took the early flight to Phuket. My hands were shaking during the entire journey. I kept rehearsing Tyler's story in my head. Business samples, nothing illegal, just helping a friend with his import business. Tyler met me at Phuket Airport, looking more nervous than I'd ever seen him. He was sweating profusely despite the air conditioning, and he kept glancing around like he expected someone to jump out at us. Everything okay? I asked. Perfect, he said, but his voice cracked. Just excited to get this deal closed. He led me to 2 large black suitcases near the check-in counter. They were heavier than I expected, probably 30 to 35 kilograms each. When I asked what was inside, Tyler gave me the same rehearsed answer about business samples and import products. Mostly electronics and some specialty food products, he said. Dense stuff. That's why they're so heavy. We approached the check-in counter together. Tyler did most of the talking, explaining to the staff that we were traveling companions and that I'd be checking the bags. The airline representative seemed slightly confused about the arrangement, but Tyler's confident demeanor and expensive appearance made everything seem legitimate. That should have been my last chance to walk away. Instead, I handed over my passport and watched as they tagged those suitcases with my name. The flight to Paris was a nightmare. I couldn't eat. couldn't sleep, couldn't focus on anything. Tyler kept trying to make small talk, but I could see the sweat stains on his shirt and the way his hands shook when he thought I wasn't looking. About 2 hours into the flight, he excused himself to use the bathroom and didn't come back to his seat for almost 45 minutes. When he finally returned, he looked pale and kept wiping his forehead with napkins. "You feeling okay?" I asked. "Just airsick," he mumbled. "I hate long flights." But something in his eyes told me this was much more than airsickness. We landed at Charles de Gaulle Airport in Paris around 10 a.m. local time. Tyler had been quiet for the last few hours of the flight, just staring out the window with his 1,000-yard stare. As we approached passport control, he suddenly grabbed my arm. "Kai, listen to me very carefully," he whispered urgently. "If anything goes wrong, and I mean anything, you don't know me. We just happen to be on the same flight. You're a tourist visiting Paris. You have no idea what's in those bags. They're not yours. Do you understand?" My blood turned to ice. "Tyler, what the hell is going on?" "Probably nothing," he said. But his face told a different story. "Just a precaution. These European customs guys can be paranoid about Asian travelers." We went through passport control separately. Tyler went first, and I watched as the officer barely glanced at his documents before waving him through. My turn went just as smoothly. But then we got to baggage claim. The baggage carousel had been running for about 10 minutes when I saw my 2 black suitcases come around. As I reached for them, Tyler grabbed my shoulder. "Wait," he hissed. "Something's not right." I looked around and noticed what he'd seen. There were way too many airport security personnel in the baggage claim area. Not just regular staff, but serious-looking people in suits with earpieces, positioned strategically around the room. "We need to leave," Tyler said. "Now, without the bags." "Are you insane?" I whispered back. "Those bags have my name on them. If we leave without them, it'll look suspicious as hell." Tyler was already backing away. "Kai, I'm sorry." "I'm so sorry, but I can't go to prison. Not again." Before I could process what he'd just said, he turned and walked quickly toward the exit. I stood there, frozen, watching him disappear into the crowd of travelers. That's when I heard someone behind me say, "Excusez-moi, monsieur." I turned around to see 2 French customs officers flanked by what looked like half the airport security team. "Are these your bags?" one of them asked in English, pointing to my suitcases. Every fiber of my being wanted to say no, to run, to pretend I'd never seen those bags before in my life. But my name was on the tags, and my passport showed I'd checked them in Phuket. "Yes," I said, and I swear those might have been the most expensive 3 letters I'd ever spoken. "Please come with us for a routine inspection." They led me to a private room where most officials were waiting. The atmosphere was tense, professional, and absolutely terrifying. One officer explained that they were going to examine the contents of my luggage, and that I had the right to have a lawyer present. I should have asked for a lawyer immediately. Instead, I kept insisting that the bags weren't really mine, that I was just helping a friend with his business samples. They opened the first suitcase. At first, everything looked normal. Clothes, some electronics, even some packaged Thai food items. Exactly what Tyler had described. I started to relax, thinking maybe I'd been paranoid about nothing. Then they started removing the false bottom of the suitcase. I watched in absolute horror as they pulled out package after package of white powder, each one wrapped carefully in plastic and tape. The officers worked methodically, laying out each package on a metal table under bright lights. "Do you know what this is?" one of them asked me. I couldn't speak. I literally couldn't form words. I just stood there, staring at what had been several kilograms of drugs with my mouth hanging open. They opened the second suitcase, and it was the same story. More clothes and legitimate items on top, and more packages of white powder hidden in a false compartment at the bottom. When they finished counting, there were 33 packages total. One of the officers weighed them and announced the total: 6.6 kilograms of what their field test confirmed was heroin. I collapsed into a chair. I actually thought I was going to vomit or pass out, or both. What followed was the most terrifying 8 hours of my life. They separated me from the drugs and took me to another room for questioning. A detective who spoke perfect English explained that trafficking 6.6 kilograms of heroin into France carried a mandatory minimum sentence of 15 years in prison, with the possibility of life imprisonment for international trafficking. However, he continued, "We believe you may have been used as what Americans call a mule. If you cooperate fully with our investigation, we may be able to work out a different arrangement." I told them everything. About Tyler, about the money, about how he'd changed the arrangement at the last minute, about how he'd abandoned me at the airport. I gave them his phone number, his address in Bangkok, descriptions of all the places we'd been together, everything I could remember. Turns out, they already knew about Tyler. Tyler Mitchell wasn't just some successful American expat. He was part of an international heroin trafficking network that had been under investigation for over 2 years. The French police had been coordinating with Thai authorities and Interpol to track the movements of drugs from the Golden Triangle through Thailand to Europe. They'd been watching Tyler for months, waiting for him to make a move large enough to justify the resources needed for a major international arrest operation. My suitcases were that move. The detective showed me surveillance photos of Tyler meeting with known drug dealers in Bangkok, Pattaya, and Chiang Mai. They had financial records showing large cash deposits in his Thai bank accounts that didn't match his declared business income. They even had recorded phone conversations where he discussed product shipments and European markets. I was just the latest in a long line of young, desperate expats that Tyler had recruited as unwitting drug mules. The detective told me about 3 other cases involving Tyler's network just in the past year. A 19-year-old British backpacker who was caught at the Amsterdam airport with 4.2 kilograms of heroin hidden in the lining of his backpack. He got 12 years in a Dutch prison. A 26-year-old Australian woman who was arrested at Tokyo airport with 3.8 kilograms of heroin concealed in false bottoms of 3 suitcases. She's serving 18 years in a Japanese prison. A 23-year-old German guy who was caught at LAX with 5.1 kilograms of heroin hidden in business samples he was carrying for a friend he'd met in Phuket. He got 25 years in federal prison. All of them had the same story I did. A friendly, successful expat who offered easy money for what seemed like a simple favor. The detective made it very clear that I was incredibly lucky. If Tyler hadn't abandoned me so obviously, If I hadn't been so cooperative, if the French authorities hadn't already been building a case against a larger network, I would be looking at spending the next 15 to 20 years in a French prison. What I didn't know until later was that Tyler had walked straight into a trap. When he left me at baggage claim, he tried to exit through the main terminal, but French police and Interpol agents were waiting for him at every possible exit point. They arrested him in the parking garage as he was trying to get into a taxi. During his arrest, Tyler was carrying a fake passport, 50,000 euros in cash, and a phone with contacts for drug dealers across Europe and Asia. A search of his hotel room in Paris revealed detailed maps of European airports, information about customs procedures in different countries, and a list of names and photos of potential mules, including my picture. The operation was coordinated across 4 countries. While Tyler was being arrested in Paris, Thai police were simultaneously raiding his apartment in Bangkok and arresting 3 of his local associates. Malaysian authorities arrested 2 couriers at Kuala Lumpur airport who were carrying similar loads bound for London. Singapore police intercepted a shipment at their port that was part of the same network. In total, they seized over 45 kilograms of heroin, arrested 12 people across 4 countries, and dismantled what Interpol described as one of the most sophisticated heroin trafficking operations in Southeast Asia. Tyler is facing drug trafficking charges in France, Thailand, and Malaysia. Even with plea bargaining and cooperation, he's looking at spending the rest of his life in prison. After 18 hours of interrogation, the French authorities made me an offer: complete cooperation with their ongoing investigation in exchange for deportation back to Thailand instead of criminal charges. I would have to provide detailed testimony about my interactions with Tyler, help them understand his recruitment methods, and be available to testify if any of his associates went to trial. In return, I will be banned from entering France for 5 years, and I wouldn't face criminal charges. I signed the agreement so fast I probably broke the pen. They put me back on a flight back to Bangkok the next day, accompanied by a French police officer who made sure I actually left the country. I've been back to Bangkok for 3 weeks now, and I'm still dealing with the psychological impact of what happened. I can't sleep properly. Every time I see a police officer or security guard, my heart starts racing. I keep having nightmares about spending decades in a foreign prison for a crime I didn't know I was committing. I've been following the news coverage of the arrests obsessively. The Bangkok Post, The Nation, and several international outlets have covered the story. Seeing Tyler's mugshot in the newspaper made everything feel real in a way that it hadn't before. The Thai police contacted me twice for follow-up questions about Tyler's activities in Bangkok. They wanted to know about other people I'd seen him with, places he took me, things he said about his business. I told them everything I could remember. I also found out that I wasn't the only young expat Tyler had approached. The police showed me a list of 8 other people he'd been in contact with over the past 6 months. All young, all struggling financially, all fitting the same profile as me. 3 of them had turned down his offers. 2 of them had taken money but backed out before traveling. 1 of them had been scheduled to carry a different shipment the week after mine. I realize now how close all of us came to ruining our lives. There are so many things I should have recognized as red flags. Tyler's vague explanations about his business, the amount of money he was offering for such simple work, the last-minute changes to our arrangement, his nervousness at the airport, his warning about not knowing him if anything went wrong, The fact that he immediately ran when he sensed trouble. But desperation makes you stupid. When you're worried about rent money and someone offers you what seems like easy cash, your judgment gets clouded. I keep thinking about those other kids who got arrested carrying Tyler's drugs. They're sitting in a prison cells right now, probably wondering how their lives went so wrong. The only difference between them and me is that I got lucky and they didn't. I'm writing to you because your channel reaches exactly the kind of people who need to hear this story. Young expats, people struggling financially, people who might be tempted by offers that seem too good to be true. If someone approaches you with an offer to carry packages, suitcases, or anything else across international borders, no matter how much money they offer, no matter how trustworthy they seem, no matter how desperate you are, don't do it. The risks are not worth it. Prison sentences for international drug trafficking are measured in decades, not years. Your life would be over before it really began. I also want people to understand how sophisticated these criminal networks are. Tyler wasn't some sketchy guy hanging around tourist areas looking for obvious marks. He was well-dressed, well-spoken, and completely integrated into the legitimate expat community. He had friends, business contacts, and a reputation as a successful entrepreneur. The people running these operations are professionals. They know exactly what kind of person to target, what kind of offer to make, and how to make the whole thing seem legitimate. Based on my experience and what the police told me, here are the warning signs that someone might be trying to recruit you as a drug mule. Someone you haven't known for very long, offering you large amounts of money for simple tasks. Requests to carry luggage, packages, or business samples across international borders. Vague explanations about what's in packages you're asked to carry. Offers that require you to travel to destinations you hadn't planned to visit. People who seem nervous or agitated when you're discussing travel plans. Anyone who tells you to deny knowing them if something goes wrong. Offers that seem disproportionately generous compared to the amount of work involved. People who pressure you to make quick decisions about traveling with their belongings. The detective in Paris told me that international drug trafficking networks are increasingly targeting young expats in Southeast Asia as mules. The region's low cost of living attracts people who are often financially desperate, far from family support systems, and unfamiliar with local laws and customs. Thailand, in particular, is a major hub because of its location between drug production areas in Myanmar and Laos, and international airports with connections around the world. The criminals running these networks specifically look for people who fit certain profiles. Young, Western, educated, struggling financially, and isolated from strong support systems. They invest time in building relationships and trust before making their offers. If you're a young expat in Thailand, you're potentially at risk just by being here. The good news is that law enforcement agencies are getting better at tracking these networks. The operation that caught Tyler involved cooperation between Thai police, French authorities, Interpol, Malaysian police, and Singapore customs officials. They're also trying to educate potential victims. Several embassies in Bangkok now include warnings about drug trafficking recruitment in their citizen services information. But ultimately, the best defense is awareness and good judgment. I'm still in Bangkok, but everything has changed. I found legitimate work teaching English, and I'm slowly rebuilding my savings the right way. I've also started volunteering with an organization that provides support services to young expats, partly because I want to help people avoid the mistakes I made. I still have nightmares sometimes, but I'm getting counseling and working through the trauma of what happened. Most importantly, I've learned to trust my instincts. When something feels too good to be true, it probably is. I want to end this email with one final thought. I came within inches of spending the next 15 to 20 years in a French prison for a crime I didn't know I was committing. The only reason I'm writing this email from my apartment in Bangkok instead of from a prison cell in France is pure luck. If Tyler had been smarter, if the authorities hadn't already been investigating him, if I hadn't been so obviously clueless about what I was carrying, my story would have ended very differently. Don't count on being lucky. Don't assume you'll be able to talk your way out of trouble. Don't believe that being young or naive or well-intentioned will save you if you get caught carrying drugs across international borders. Just don't do it. No amount of money is worth risking your entire life. Thank you for reading my story. And thank you for creating a platform where people can share these experiences. I hope my nightmare can help prevent someone else from making the same mistakes I did. If you decide to share this story on your channel, please don't use my real name. Tyler's network had connections across Southeast Asia, and I don't know if all of his associates have been arrested yet. Stay safe out there. Kai, long-time subscriber and survivor. P.S. I kept all the documentation from my experience, police reports, airline tickets, even photos from the interrogation room. They let me take pictures of the drugs they seized, which was surreal. If you want to use this story for your channel and need proof that it's real, I can provide verification. I just want to make sure that other people don't go through what I went through.